existence is naturally egoless. And what is truly your existence is always so. The nature of which never changes. It is absolute. By the term ego is meant the assumption, an entirely false assumption, of individuality, some particularization of existence or separation from this absolute existence. Sri Bhagavan said that the egoless state is the real state, the only real state that there is. Individuality, or the state of egotism, is an illusion and not real at all. Freedom from such illusion is known as liberation, or abidance in the self as the self. The individual is not, but you exist. And the nature of your existence, yourself, is entirely that existence, the self, or Brahman. And it is never otherwise. To imagine otherwise is merely ignorance, which too is not apart from this absolute existence, though there is no ignorance inherent in this absolute existence. For how could that which is of the nature of infinite consciousness or supreme knowledge contain ignorance? Or again, how could it be ignorant of itself? If one inquires, who is ignorant? Ignorance ceases. If one inquires, for whom is this illusion? The illusion ceases. The interior knowledge of the self, being's own knowledge of itself, transcendent of sensation and thought, is true knowledge, truly spiritual knowledge. Words and thoughts used to express this knowledge should not be regarded as the knowledge itself. The knowledge itself is of a non-objective character. It is not an it. Rather, in self-knowledge, in which you know yourself, you yourself are the knowledge. From the position or perspective of an individualized I, embodied and otherwise misidentified, how this can be so is most mysterious. Yet in your eyeless true nature, your existence as it is, which is absolute and one without a second, what is being indicated is self-evident. If there is the assumption of being an individual, where is the proof of it? That you exist is the fact. That you are a supposed individual, well, it is just a supposition. The body is not proof of individuality. After all, whose body is it? That is, the body supposedly belongs to an individual, meaning the individual is distinct from the body. What is the individual? What is your own sense of I, minus the misidentification with the body? Similarly, what is the nature of existence without misidentification with the senses? The herd of thoughts that seem to roam about is not proof of individuality or the ego. The thoughts seem to belong to someone. One says, my thoughts. The I of that my must be different than the thoughts. What remains of the sense of I if misidentification with any thought ceases? The further inward you proceed in this inquiry, the less there is to mark off the supposed individual. The more the sense of individuality vanishes, or may be said to merge with Brahman. The closer the look at the jiva, the more he turns out to be Shiva, and not a jiva at all. What in ignorance is mistaken to be a jiva or individual being is in truth only Brahman and not anything other. Illusion, delusion, ignorance of any kind, bondage, suffering, the samsara, birth, death, etc. All these are for the assumed individual, and never for the reality of the self. Abandon that false assumption of being an individualized existence, and what you truly are, your real being, remains as it naturally is, as it always is. And in this is found complete peace and happiness, freedom from illusion, freedom from bondage, etc. Whatever appears as a problem or an obstacle or a bondage is for someone. Without that someone, what problem could there be? If your heart's desire is the supreme spiritual knowledge, inquire within yourself and know your existence as it is. Again, you cannot be known as an object. The self is never a known or unknown object. This is transcendent knowledge, self-knowledge, in which the self that knows, the self that is known, and the nature of the knowledge itself are all one and the same thing. If you yearn for liberation from all of the imagined bondage, know yourself. If you yearn to devote yourself to God, know yourself. If you yearn to realize the significance of Brahman, know yourself. And if you understand that self-knowledge is the key to all of this, well then certainly know yourself. Inquire. Inquire, tracing out your own sense of existence, and find its non-individualized, infinite, eternal nature. And if while inquiring you have a question, please feel free to ask it.
Master, I had a question regarding the I know and I exist. So this is my direct experience, I know and I exist. Now, the question is like, in deep sleep, there is existence, and pure knowledge in deep sleep. Now, what I'm trying to understand in my inquiry is like, does I know and I am borrow this existence from pure knowledge and pure existence? And then it gets individualized as I know I am. And what it equates to is my existence and my objectless knowing is equivalent to pure existence and pure knowledge. So, and after that, mind, body, and senses come. Like after that, mind, thoughts, knower, knowing, known, and all that stuff. But since existence is pure, so this is how I should do the inquiry. Like
existence is pure, and existence is knowledge. Then comes all this other stuff, as you put it. What starts that?
thought.
And what starts thought? What's the root of thought?
Consciousness.
But consciousness is undifferentiated. So how does consciousness become a thought?
Out of its own nature, its own freedom?
It has freedom by its nature, but it is also forever unmodified. So how does consciousness become a thought if it is unmodified, never changes, and is undifferentiated?
To know itself.
It knows itself with that innate knowledge of existence. It has no need of another knowledge. There must be one with the barest definition who conceives of thought, who seems to have a distinct awareness of thought. The one you regard as yourself. Look at his nature. This was what was just being addressed. If he is individualized, I, even without any other definition, there will be some kind of this. If he is subtle, the this is thought. If he is regarded as the gross body, then the this is the objects of the world. How did it start? Did it start? The answer to this cannot be objective. It must be known immediately or directly within yourself. You can do so by inquiring into that I that has the thoughts and everything else. The thoughts do not proclaim their own reality. Someone says, these are. We may say roughly like this: there is pure consciousness, which is supreme knowledge, plus the objective notion, the idea of something objectively existing, comes out as a thought, a thing, etc. Not that such really is a transformation of the consciousness. This is just a way of describing the illusion. And the illusion rests entirely upon the single assumption of I, the one who perceives it, the one who says, this is so, or this appears. Again and again, look at him.
on that notion. What about the gross objects, like the physical objects and subtle objects? Like, I know I am, so basically I am free. So in terms of inquiry, I'm saying, I know I am, so I am freedom itself. I am self-luminous, eternal. But what about the objects of the world? Like physical and subtle. Like, I want to know them. So, but since knowing is my nature, right? Objectless knowing is my nature. So I want to know them. So I run behind them. But the inquiry should be done in such a way that they should point to me, or they have to convert themselves to objectless knowledge, right? If they want to be known, because I am self-luminous.
How do you know about them?
By my senses.
All right. You know about them by your senses, and you have no experience whatsoever of them apart from the sensations.
Yes, I agree with that.
So you've never experienced an object, you've just experienced the sensations. How do you experience the sensations? How do you know about them?
Knowing does not belong to the senses, I'm sure.
All right, that is correct. They appear only in a waking state of mind. And apart from that waking state, you've never had an experience of the senses. So neither the sense objects nor the senses actually exist. You have absolutely no experience of them. There's just the thought of them in a given state of mind.
So from there onwards, like those thoughts which I see, images, sounds and other sense objects, where should I proceed from there?
Well, can you see that these are all thought? You don't think of an object, the thought is the object. You don't think of a sensation, the sensation is nothing more than a form of thought.
But they appear to me.
They appear projected by the mind into itself. There's no such thing as an external world. But why stop there? Who knows the mind?
I know I am the witness when the thoughts are there. Like, I witness it. But I'm always involved with the sense perception. I mean, the thoughts, like one thought, second thought, third thought, they just move in a train. I get lost, but then after some time I remember that, oh, I'm the witness, yeah. So,
do you have any experience of the thoughts apart from the knowledge of them? Then just as with the objects in the senses, you've actually never experienced a thought, just the knowledge of it. So much so is this the case, that you can't say there's an it, there's just the knowledge. If you dive deep into the nature of that knowledge, you'll find that there's no world, no senses, no mind at any time. Just one undifferentiated being consciousness bliss. The whole idea, the entire idea, I know it, is delusive. The objective portion is merely imagined. Knowledge belongs only to consciousness. And there is no I except absolute existence.
Master, so when the thought arises, I guess I say images, let's say images, which is form. Form is seeing. Seeing is like what I see, let's say. So those images, I should discard, I should ask, like, to whom does it belong?
Yes, if you inquire like that, to whom does it belong? To whom does it appear? The sense of reality and the sense of identity, both, will return to the rightful place.
and discard the objective part. I'm only focused on the light. So let's say they appear because of my light.
When you ask for whom is this, by the return of the sense of reality, the objectification is lost. For whom is this? For whom is the appearance? The idea that there is an appearance. For whom is this? Like this, pursue inwardly in a non-objective fashion. And if you still assume, well, it's there, find out who has that assumption. Everything rests on you. In relation to all, the consciousness which is yourself is referred to as the Sakshi or witness. It does not mean that there's actually things witnessed. It's a way of indicating the nature of consciousness as the perpetual, non-objective knower.
So Master, you're suggesting always try to be that knower.
You are that.
I mean in the inquiry.
Yes.
But I get diverted to the known all the time. So
The mixing up of the knower and the known is the characteristic of delusion. Remove the attributes of the known that are superimposed upon the knower. The reality belongs to the knower. The known has no independent existence. Think of the knower in terms of the known as a mind, as a compilation of senses, etc. And they'll appear to be objects, subtle and gross. Divest the knower of the superimposed known notions, and what is there? What is the knower when you cease to think of him in terms of the known? From the known, by the known I mean from the notion I down to the forms of the world. Negate all those notions, the known from the knower. Then say what is what.
thank you, Master.
The attempt to prove individuality is a great meditation. As soon as you posed the question, I went, yeah, how are we going to do this? And what it did was make me look at what do I actually consider an individual to be? And especially if I'm an individual. Who is that? And it's clearly not a body. The idea that an individual is represented by a body or the other way around makes me question even more, what am I talking about? What is this thing that seems to be surrounded by a whole bunch of forms, subtle and gross, that I'm saying is there? What if I actually look at what is there? There isn't anything there.
There is existence there.
That's all that's...
And the body also belongs only to that, is only that. Who is the thief that gets in between and claims I and the body, both?
Maharshi's definition, a spurious ghost-like entity. I love that because it's spurious because it's only there in one form in the waking state. It's in another form during the dream state, disappears in deep dreamless sleep. Ghost-like. So it brings me back to the question, has there ever been an individual? Was there ever one of those things? To answer the question falls apart really quickly because the idea of individuality is not a real thing. It's not. It's a very interesting concept because it's at the core of knowing oneself. And when you try to find yourself as an individual, you can't find anything that matches that concept. There isn't something that goes with it.
And the knowledge which illumines such inquiry is innately egoless. For it is the luminosity of pure consciousness.
So I'm asking myself, what you just described, do I experience myself as that? That's a great question to ask because you've really got to quickly figure out who is me in that process.
Exactly so.
If you go for the me part and set aside the other part, it resolves itself immediately.
So then always know the nature of I, first and foremost. And then we'll see if any doubts or differences remain. That which you are always. Reality will never change its nature. So if you're without individuality now, then you're without ego in the past and the future as well. This dissolves the delusive notion of an unrealized being entirely. It also eliminates the notion of a realized being. There is just being, which is realization. And for that, there is no unrealized state.
I do have the direct experience of what you're talking about when I consider what has always been there, unchanging, always silent. That's the one thing that I actually know. And I've always known that. I've never lost track of that.
The knowledge of existence is as perpetual as the existence itself. If it were otherwise, it would not be eternal, so it would be tenuous. What begins has an end. What appears disappears. What is born dies. What is created is destroyed. But real being, which is the knowledge, is without beginning, and so without an end. It belongs to no one, though it is everyone. In that, the idea, I do not know, does not arise. Consequently, the idea, I do know, also does not arise.
Looking in my experience of existence, all that I see there is I am. And that's really it.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om. That Supreme Brahman is infinite, and this conditioned Brahman is infinite. The infinite proceeds from the infinite. Taking the infinite of the infinite, it remains as the infinite alone. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Om Ishavatyamidagam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita ma kritaskasya siddhanam.
Om, all this, whatsoever moves on the earth, should be covered by the Lord. Protect yourself through that detachment. Do not covet anybody's wealth.
Ane jade kammanaso javi yo naina deva apnuvan purvamarchat tadha vatonya etitishtasmin napo maatarishva adadadi.
It is unmoving, one, and faster than the mind. The senses could not overtake it, since it ran ahead. Remaining stationary, it outruns all other runners. It being there, Matarishva allots all activities.
Tade jati tanne jati taddure tadva antike tadantadasya sarvasya tadusarvasyasya bahyataha.
That moves, that does not move, that is far off, that is very near, that is inside all, and that is outside all.
Yastu sarva ani bhutanyatmanyeva nupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate yasmin sarvani bhutanyatmeva bhutvijanataha tatra ko mohakashoka ekatvamanupashyataha.
He who sees all beings in the very self, and the self in all beings, feels no hatred by virtue of that realization.
Yasmin sarva ani bhutanyatmeva nubhutvijanataha tatra ko mohakashoka ekatvamanupashyataha.
When to the man of realization all beings become the very self, then what delusion and what sorrow can there be for that seer of oneness?
Sapadyaka chukramaka yammavranam asma virakam shuddham apavidham kavirmanishi paribhu swayambhur yatha tatyato arthan vyatata chashvadibhyah samaabhyah.
He is all pervasive, pure, bodiless, without wound, without sinews, taintless, untouched by sin, omniscient, ruler of mind, transcendent, and self-existent. He has duly allotted the respective duties to the eternal years, to the eternal creators called by that name.